Hi everybody and welcome to SA Rugby Magazine. We've got a very interesting show today. I've got James Dalton. James, welcome.
Hello, Kevin. Nice to be here.
I hear when
Nice to be your company.
Always a pleasure, James. I hear when the Tokolosh goes to bed, he checks the closet for you. It's really any truth to that?
Well, if you look at my mask,
Yeah,
it
so
could
we're
be
gonna
the
have
case.
Okay, it is true.
Nice grin.
And Mark Keohane. Mark, it's always nice to have you here.
Thanks.
Let's chat about the Stormers and all this confusion around this American consortium coming into the country and I read News 24 today. Not that I believe everything I read on there, but the gentleman that's coming in, he's coming in for these talks. Now, it strikes me as funny that he says there's a simple conversation. Are they going to give up control? If the answer is no, then he walks out of the boardroom. Seems like a long way to come for that question, Mark.
Yeah, he has come to visit his mum in Durban.
Okay.
And so I think while he's in Durban, he's going to take a flight to Cape Town and meet in person. It's a very simple thing. Either province gives them the okay and takes the money that they put on the table, or there's no deal. And that's what province have been arguing.
They've done everything, including selfish, incompetent, all the names under the book. So usually when I'm negotiating with a company, I don't usually do those things to the person I'm negotiating with, get it out in the press that they're incompetent and selfish.
Well, I think the history shows they certainly haven't acted in the best interest of the province. I mean, you can even see with the exit of the old funder, Mr. Rupert,
Yeah.
who abandoned them and went happily to the Bulls.
Well,
Because if you look at their history, they want that controlling share simply for where they don't want or need to be accountable for how they're spending or where they're spending the money. So let's be honest.
Yeah, look, I heard a rumor and heard many rumors, but I believe that Theo Wakefield went over when they went to their warm-up Super Rugby in France. Him and an entourage went. They had to leave 5 or 6 players behind because so
that's correct.
They wanted a trip overseas. So there's no accountability. But Mark, what say you on Zelt Murray?
Yeah, look, I think it's very politicised with Western Province Rugby, and I think the fear that was seen among the Western Cape clubs and primarily the coloured clubs is that this is a white takeover again of Western Province Rugby, and it is very white. Everyone that's been linked to this deal is white, and my understanding is that they got a lot of the senior players on board, offered them share options, offered them various kind of financial incentives. And the minute players start dictating what's going on in a professional franchise, well, that's a disaster.
Well, I think there's also a bit of bullshit involved in there as well, because we were chatting off air about Cheslin Colby. He didn't get an increase this year in salary, and he's probably the best player in the world right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of threat that goes on in South African rugby, especially down here, when you've got a lot of Springboks who say we're going overseas, we're leaving, we won't stay here anymore. No one wants anyone overseas at the moment because no one can afford anyone. As Kevin was saying, Cheslin Colby's contract wasn't increased, not because they didn't want to, it's they just couldn't.
It's because of
the money's just not there.
Conditions.
So if you're looking at some of the top premiership players who are on £350,000 a year, they're on £180,000 now. So if you've got a player in this country who's on R6 million a year, living in Cape Town, living in the comforts of his home, why is he going to go overseas for marginally more to prove a point? So there's a lot of threats and player revolts that have been put out there. It's all nonsense. I personally, I've said this all along, it has to be privatized. That's where rugby has to go. I don't think this is a particularly good deal for Western Province, and I've said that all along. It's $6 million, which is petty cash for these guys. Translated, it's over $100 million. And I know Dobbo just loses it every time he hears me say this.
But they're connected with Rock Nation as well, who also represent
SIA. Yeah. So it's again this, but we're worth nothing. These guys are coming in, but they're coming in short term then. Yeah. Don't sell your business or sell your soul for short term. Sell it for big and then get the hell out of here.
But it's not only that. It's about, okay, this money comes in, where does it go to? Because they always seem to be running out of money.
It goes to player salaries, and that's the problem. You can't build a franchise where most of your expense is just to player salaries.
Well, it's like having a pot, you fill it, but it's got a few holes at the bottom, and the water trickles out, and you've got to keep filling it.
Well, someone argues that it has no bottom.
Yeah, and then you also get them getting an ex-politician involved,
Well,
who was hardly capable just to do that political role,
yeah.
sufficiently.
Look, you have a situation where
I agree, Jim.
there's so much, there's so many things you can throw at the Western Province executive, at the Western Province leadership, and everything will stick. And I think that's what's giving these guys the ammunition and the fuel to say, great deal, incompetent fools aren't taking the deal. It goes a lot deeper than that.
But
So
don't you find it strange that they're putting that out into the press beforehand, before sitting down at that meeting? I mean, whether the article that I read talked about that it wasn't them that reached out to Western Province, it was Western Province that reached out to them.
Well, look, I know some inside info. I mean, I was present in a meeting where Zelt approached the financial institution to try and raise like measly 120 million, which would be basically cover their bills for 1 month. So you just almost see, when Mark touched on this, you've got the coloured club influence here, that is certainly based on all of that. And if you look at the historical behaviour, they will never give majority. I can underwrite that.
and I don't blame them. I wouldn't give it up either.
Well, not for $6 million, but at some stage something's going to happen. You're going to run out of funds. There's going to be maladministration, and the whole thing's going to come crashing down. No one will sponsor anymore, because if you can't pay the bills, you go out of business.
Absolutely.
You can't keep running.
Well, Kevin, let's be honest. If I don't have control and say over where my money's going to be spent as an investor, why would then invest?
I agree, James. You wouldn't. No one's going to go in. No one. And I mean, no one's going to go in there and get 49%.
No.
And the value of the Stormers, just by default, is going to increase hugely from next year onwards when they play in the Northern Hemisphere and they play in pro rugby and with the potential to play in the European Championship.
Well, the potential's there, and I think that it is more valuable now that we're going to the north.
Well, like I always said, you put in an hour here, you get R1. You put in an hour in the Northern Hemisphere, you get R20 for the same hours. Certainly the commercials make sense.
Well, it's going to be.
But also in getting there is what is the Stormers at the moment are doing so much reputational damage to first of all their business ethics and their business credibility, and then obviously their performances. So.
One would argue what ethics have they ever shown in the last 4 years?
I was going to say that as well. I don't think they can do any more damage. Really, I mean, they've been in the firing line for the last decade.
Short of burning Newlands to the ground.
They can't even get that right in terms of what that is worth. And if you think of all the properties that the Western Province Rugby Union owns, they should be the wealthiest franchise in the world.
Well, that's probably the only reason that they're still trading right now, because of the asset that they sit on.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if they were a real business, they would be trading recklessly from a cash flow point of view. They don't know how it would be each month they're going to pay the bills. So I mean, it's a real mess there.
And rugby again, and the South African public needs to understand this as well. We only have the financial wherewithal for tops 120 professional players in this country. At one stage we had 700. When Russie came in, he actually sliced and diced that thing. And of those 120, there should be a ranking structure of you're on something, James, and your agent can go and actually negotiate you anything because you're the best in the world. You're on something else, and I'm a newcomer that comes in. I'm very much third tier. But every kid who comes in there at 18 believes that they should be on an A kind of contract, or they're going to go to France, or they're going to go to Japan, or go to England. Those days are long gone now. COVID has killed that. And the money just isn't there at the moment in the game.
Well, it's like having, like you say, quite rightly, you should have categories. Category A, B, C, whatever. You're not going to get the same price for a used motor car like you're going to get for the price of a new one.
You get in this country, but you get in this country. There's some very, very ordinary professional rugby players who are earning close to R2 million a year, and
sitting on the bench, Mark, most of that.
They wouldn't make a team elsewhere. Yet they are on that kind of money. It's.
Well, I think also going to the north is going to highlight that even more when we start competing with the north. I mean, I think there's this perception that Super Rugby is being so far ahead of every competition in the world, and when the Bulls and the Stormers and these teams bed down in that conference, they're not going to finish 1, 2, 3, and 4. I can guarantee you that.
No, not at all. And what it will do is because at the moment in pro rugby, the likes of Leinster and Munster will play their A team 1 out of 5 games.
Yeah.
and then they'll play them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Now they'll play them every week when they play in the top 4 South African sides. So you're going to get a far better quality event. The key from a South African perspective, and this hasn't been finalised yet, is do the South African franchises, and I think it will happen now, qualify to go into Europe, because that's where the real money is for a franchise.
Yeah.
To play in the old Heineken Cup, top 6 that gets in, like from France, that's where you make your money. That's where they determine the success of a coach when he comes in. Can you make your side a top 6 team and take them into that?
Are they still negotiating that, Mark, or is it part of the package?
I think it's part. Everything's still under negotiation because we still haven't even officially confirmed that will be the tournament structure. But it has to be part of that because it's a long-term thing. South Africa's not going to the North for a season. They're going to play their Super Rugby franchises will be playing there. New Zealand's already released their 2021 Super Rugby program, as has Australia. And they've really released their 2022 Super Rugby structure, which is the 5 teams from each country, a Fijian team and a Samoan team. So South Africa is out of that for the next decade. They've confirmed we'll play in the Rugby Championships. They said for the next 10 years. The contract is till 2030. But Yuri Roo, Mark Alexander, all the leadership there have said it's under negotiation. They are committed till the next World Cup. They have to give no commitment beyond that. And that makes sense. So they will be there playing All Black Springboks for the next 3 years. And then they'll decide what goes on. But it's certainly not going to be a 10-year extension.
I would hope not. And if our Super Rugby teams are playing in the North, I would suggest that the Boks look to go north as well. They can always arrange. Who cares if they play Australia? But they can always arrange games against the All Blacks, which the world wants to see every 2 years.
Absolutely.
Great.
Well, I think the less you see like All Black South Africa
The more
contest, the more gravitas and the more value will be in those games. The higher the value of the sponsorships will be.
Yeah.
So it just enhances those rivalries where you can command bigger paychecks.
Look, and the
You're so
New Zealand,
Kevin.
yeah.
I mean, you even look at our Super Rugby teams in the old concept, hardly performing against the New Zealand teams. Apart from maybe 15 years ago where we won 3 titles. Now going north, how competitive are we really going to be?
Well, I would, the biggest, the most ill-conceived part of the Southern Hemisphere Super Rugby was the traveling. South African teams going there regularly took beatings in New Zealand.
Yeah, it was ridiculous, the travelling. We were always away the extra fortnight.
Yeah.
And you look at, if you go back to a lot of those league tables, a lot of the playoff places, the difference was 4 league points. So New Zealand teams would come in. It was only in the last few years that they changed it, that they'd have to go to Argentina and Australia on the way home. So they play 2 here, play 1 Argentina, 1 in Australia, and then go home. And then they were like, this is the craziest schedule ever. It's what our guys were doing all the time.
It's like a tournament that was imagined by Inspector Clouseau, who threw things at a map. Let's get Argentina involved. Let's get,
Let's get the Sunwolves involved. That was ridiculous.
No, look, it was a concept that was overcooked, overdone, a long time in coming. And I have to say, like a bit of insider trading here, you make mention of the travel. When I played in the super competition, it wasn't about the travel. The travel wasn't even a thing. They were just better than us. They just stuffed us up because they were better rugby players and better rugby teams than us.
Wow.
So, for me, the travelling didn't affect me. It might be a psychological thing, and it might be a thing like you say, every rugby field is the same. It's got 4 lines.
So you're finally confirming that 15% historical win rate was down to inferiority.
Which 15%?
The 15% of the Lions.
15% of which cake?
So, what would your advice be to Zelt with this guy on the magical carpet ride coming in with $6 million? Mark, what would you say?
I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Castle.
How much for the jousting sticks?
Yeah. Tell him he's dreaming.
What a great movie.
First of all, and I mean, I don't mean this disrespectfully to Zelt, but he certainly should not be the man handling this negotiation. In all honesty, I just think he lacks that business acumen and expertise unless he's pre-consulted and goes in there with a defined game plan.
Look, it's a pretty, yeah, I agree. You know, I don't know him enough to make any comment like that, James, but it's quite simple. If you to believe what Media 24 have written, or News 24, it's a you don't need to fly to Cape Town to ask someone whether they're willing to give up control. That's a phone call, yes or no.
Correct.
You know, all this
And if these
histrionics, all this
conditions
drama.
will then come, yeah.
Yeah, if you're willing, then we can negotiate. It's a
Sure.
simple phone call. It's, you know, I don't know why everybody's reporting on it and blowing it up to be. If they're not, then these guys need to go away. And then Zelt's job is to find someone else or a big sweaty wad of cash to prop up the Western Province
Well, I mean,
Union.
just go look. Why did Rupert run away?
Well-
And so all the others are also going to run away.
Well, I don't think Rupert.
I was going to say, Artie, he ran away.
I think Rupert's
well,
the
I
sort of
mean,
guy that walks away.
Okay, yeah. Okay, well, you know, figuratively speaking.
He walked away
You
and
know.
said that 40 million they loaned them is 50 million to be paid back. So when Remgro, it's like, we've given you enough kind of time, we've given you kind of that investment.
Look,
With the hostile liquidation.
Yeah.
Look, I think that's part of the
Yeah.
the reasons that Mr. Rupert would walk
Absolutely,
away was
it was.
because look
I
at all
know.
the bad press that just emanates from Western Province.
Sure.
There's always scandal. There's always drama. There's always all these negative things. Why would a man like that want? Look, he's had no bad publicity since investing in the Bulls.
No.
There's no storm in there. There's never any issues.
And,
It's
and,
a
in,
well
and
run.
in fact, there's only been upsurgence in the quality of the Bulls.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Province needs strong leadership. It's not there at the moment. They also need kind of a coach and players to kind of stick to their lanes, perform on the field, get results, and then once you've won something, you kind of go into a boardroom with a lot more gravitas than when you're taking a beating at Loftus and then have a lot to say.
But hang on, I thought the Stormers post World Cup were the most dominant team in the country.
They were for 3 weeks, James. Then there was lockdown and COVID.
Well,
And as we said, post-COVID, life will never be the same again.
yeah. Well, we wish the Stormers the best of luck and Zelt as well in negotiating with
Absolutely.
with this group, and hopefully there'll be a happy ending. But I wouldn't bet on it.
No, I really do, Kevin, because the Stormers it's a strong brand, and it's important for them to be in existence and be part of SA Rugby.
Yes.
And you know, I mean, there's a lot of history in Western Province Rugby. You know, whether you want to call it Western Province or Stormers. And if you look at the greats that have been associated with that brand over the years, it is sad where the current standings, where they find themselves at the moment.
Absolutely. Can't get in. Well, touch wood. Can't
Yeah, touch it. Kevin.
there you go. Touch it. Hopefully can't get any worse. Thanks, guys, for the insight, and always a pleasure.